Hello and welcome to the overview of audio, CM243. This is a second year module that's optional and worth 10 credits. In this overview, I'll have a look at the course structure, the course content, how the module will be delivered this year. I'll detail a questionnaire that'll be sent out to you, situate the course within the degree overall, and have a look at the types and forms of assignments. As this is a second year module and we have the basics of audio done, first week we'll do a quick recap, introduce to new software and how we'll sort of run the module between online and lab sessions in person. From then on, from week 2 to 5, we'll start extending and developing our mixes. We'll focus initially on some music technology software, and we'll look at things like mapping out a mix, creating depth and clarity. We look at using sound effects, both for real audio and for virtual instruments. We look how we can put together MIDI and electronic music sound source with voice and with loops and other sound sources we may record. We'll practice some extended listening so that we get to describe and communicate the sounds that we're trying to talk to other people about in a much clearer fashion. Along with this, we'll be making some music. We'll be making soundtracks that could be useful in animation, video, or for their own sake. This focus on sound design and producing our own soundtracks is basically linear in fashion. After week 5, we'll start looking at other forms of audio. We'll learn about synthesis, where we'll be able to make our own sounds from scratch out of other sounds by morphing, tweaking, time stretching and turning sounds inside out. The type of thing when you want to get bespoke sounds that you can't actually record yourself, but you need to make them out of some other sound. We'll then have a look at other forms of audio. Audio towards gaming, audio towards VR and audio towards 360 videos. We look at something called ambisonics, which instead of just concentrating on the left and right speakers, that is the headphones, we will look at multi-speaker arrays and audio that can track head movements for VR and 360 video, so that the sound will pan and be placed in the appropriate place for a full 360 wraparound sound. Along with this, we'll pick up some extra tools, something called sound particles we'll be using. This is equivalent to a 3D design program that you might see for visuals, but in our case we'll be using it for sound, to position sounds and also to make multiple sounds. It's a great sound design tool that out of one or two simple sources we can create thousands, hundreds and spatialize them around the place. So moving from a typical linear 2D sort of sound into 3D sounds, ambisonics and wraparound sounds. The module this year has been delivered by Blended Online in-classroom experience. So we will have a lecture every week online via Zoom. I will not be recording the Zooms, but I will record similar material so that they're uploaded. This means that if you want to contribute, pause, ask questions, use the chat for more explanation, none of this will be recorded. It's free and open as the usual classroom. And the content, if there are demonstrations or clips from movies that I'll be showing, they'll be available on loop separately. There'll also be 5 sessions in person. So far it looks like every second week we'll be in. There'll be longer sessions than a normal sort of lab session, so that when you come in we'll be focusing on specific elements. Here's a look at what the labs might look like. So while in the lectures we'll have talked about some ideas of how to mix, seen some great examples of what's going on, in the labs we'll be putting things into practice. So the first lab session, we'll basically do a review of elements we might want to do again, and reintroduce people to the software that we're using and things like that, get everyone settled. The second lab session, we'll be looking at MIDI and remixing, where we're taking voice, we'll be editing MIDI, and we're putting together a track that has voice, MIDI electronica, and some loops and some atmospheric sounds. So basically every type of audio source in one place. On the right hand column there, you'll see something called challenge. What we're doing in this module is, for each of these lab sessions we'll have a challenge, an exercise based on the technique we're focusing on that week. While you don't have to complete it there and then, you will have an opportunity to get graded on some of these. When we come to the assessment section, I'll explain these in a little more detail. So we move on from basic MIDI and remixing to looking at some revoicing. So you'll have a MIDI and sort of techno track that you need to revoice and reshape. From then we look at synthesis, where we'll take sounds and sculpt them. So we'll almost be able to take any recording or any snippet from less than a second up to 15 minutes and morph it and change it to do what we want. This is a great sound design tool which allows us to really get sounds we couldn't get any other way. After this, we look at space, movement and multiples. So using specialized software, we'll take some sources and make it sound like a herd or a flock. We'll make one gunshot sound like a battlefield. We'll make a small stream sound like a waterfall. We'll be able to multiply sounds, position them spatially, and do really interesting things with them. We look at sound that we can place in a full sphere around us. So not just left and right, in front of us, behind us, and on top and below us. And create a really immersive, engaging environment with it. Useful for itself, but also useful for engaging with 360 video, gaming environments and things like that. Once you sign up for the course, you'll have access to Loop. On Loop, you'll find a questionnaire. It will be really useful, and I'll send out reminders close to the date, to fill in this questionnaire. You don't have to use your name if you don't want, but it would be helpful. I'm trying to find out what sort of shape and structure you're looking for the course and what you want to get out of it, because you can direct this course a lot of different ways. So while we're all doing sort of common techniques and looking at a lot of variety of showings and demos and different source material, you can shape this to be something you want. That could be looking forward to third year, or looking forward to your career, or looking forward to something you would like to just try out now in this module. So I have 5 main areas where people usually show interest. There'll be things like radio and podcasts, sound with or for moving image, sound for sound's sake, so something that doesn't require an image or another piece of media to support it, sonic art, so installation art, sound for sound's sake, but that doesn't say music. And then sound for responsive or nonlinear systems. So if you're interested in looking at sound for games, or you're interested in looking at sound for VR or apps, that would be where you'd sort of put your priority. You're asked to give a 1 to 5 there, so which is the most important or the most interesting for you? I'd like to know the reasons for taking the module, and be honest about that, as it helps me understand where people are coming from and what they want to apply the sound for. Maybe it's because you're really interested in animation and you understand the importance of sound for that and you want to use it there. Maybe it's because music and sound are interests outside the uni and you want to bring it into the uni. That's absolutely fine too. Areas you think might need some revision or refreshing. If there's areas that when we get rolling, you say, oh, I wish I didn't quite remember that from last year. It could be 6 months since you used audio software or did any recording. You'll have an opportunity here to flag them. So I can put up extra tutorials, or maybe do a week on a refresher or a revision video or something like that. I'd also like to know any sound or music or audio heroes you have. Is there a sound designer for film you particularly love? Or is there a set of games that you think the sound or the music are particularly engaging in? Is there an app design you think is wonderful? Are there people or names or a certain sort of producer, director that you find they always produce something that really engages me? This will also be useful working and thinking about one of the projects we'll do. And the final one is, what outside experience that I wouldn't know? So while we've all done a module together in first year, I'd love to hear about the other things you do. Do you play an instrument? Do you DJ? Do you do live sound for theatre? There could be a bunch of other ways where music or sound come in, and it's nice for me to know and have an idea within the class for helping making metaphors when I'm explaining things, or to know sort of where the feel of the class is. This module stands on its own, obviously. It's an interesting module, a rewarding module to take part in, that you get a lot of direction in, and you can actually make your own in a lot of ways. But it also feeds in directly into many of the third year projects. So if you're thinking of doing film, branching narrative, game design, app design, this sort of module really sets you up well to be that specialist in a group. It also means you have that extra expertise that nothing should be beyond you after this module. You should be able to record any source and produce, mix, tweak that sound to get any results you want out of it. It's a future-looking module, so while we do cover traditional linear media, we also look forward to non-linear media, virtual media, and sort of 360 video and that, and see where sound is going in the next sort of 5 years or so. The assignments have 3 assignment points. There's the challenges, which are worth 20%, which I talked about briefly. There's going to be the makers presentations worth 30%, and the final project worth 50%. There'll be 5 lab challenges, as I said. You'll choose 4 of these and submit them as part of your grade. All the challenges will be put up on a forum on Loop, and you'll be able to listen to other people, they'll be able to listen to yours. It's worth 20%, so each one's worth 5% each. The makers presentation. This will be an interesting presentation, so it will be groups, and the groups will be between 2 and 3. Now, because we're working partially online this year, we'll negotiate and discuss the best way to do these. In-class presentations won't work so well this year, so we'll be making basically short video presentations. I'll put on a sign-up sheet on Loop where you can say, I'd like to work in, sound art, or I'd like to look at something around film, or I'd like to look at something around gaming sound. This is just a starting point, so that if you get a group together that wants to work on a certain part of this presentation project, that's fine. We can take you off the list. But if you find yourself it's difficult to get together with people, especially because we won't be in class so often together, I can assign people after a certain date into groups based around their interests, which usually works out quite well. This is worth 30% of your grade. The idea is you're going to pick a hero, someone you think is marvellous, someone you'd love to emulate in some way, or you'd love to find out more about how they actually do what they do. They need to be a sound or music person, and it could be a game sound designer, it could be a film composer, it could be a DJ you like, it could be a musician you like, it could be anywhere in that whole range. With this, we'll set up a way of researching their background, and you'll need to produce something in that style. So after breaking down their style and how they do things, you'll then replicate a piece. It'll be about 10 to 12 minutes in length, but again, this isn't all media you've created. You are asked to make about 90 seconds of original media. So after you've introduced your area, the topic of interest, the key maker, the person you're going to look at, you situate them amongst other people who have similar styles or similar roles elsewhere. You note what's different about them, what's their hallmarks, what makes them stand out from the other people who do something similar, whether they're a DJ or a sound designer for music or games. What's the difference about this person? You're going to bring us through the process of how you did this. The final assignment is going to be quite open. It's worth 50%, and it'll be either something based around audio narrative, in other words, something that doesn't rely on pictures or graphics or extra text, that'll stand on its own. It could be something to do with sound and image. It won't be a typical video sound project, but it will have images you will use, and you'll either work with them to bring the story out of them or work in counterpoint with them, whichever you feel works best. Or you could design some type of sound installation or non-linear sound piece. So you could propose a design for a game, or propose an installation piece that might be sensor based or might be just speakers in a room that play around a certain theme. And we look at how we work those up. These will be groups again of 2 to 3. And even though we're working remotely most of the time, it's still good practice, because all of us seem to be working more and more remotely, and getting that working together is very useful. And we will look at workflows throughout to make this streamlined and work as efficiently for you as possible. So, if you have any questions about the detail, feel free to email me between now and the time of registration, and I'll answer as best I can. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation, and hopefully I'll see you in the next semester.